Hello, I'm Anna Raimondi, coming to you from the Angel Cooperative in Ridgefield, Connecticut. Welcome to this episode of Talking to the Dead in Suburbia. Today, our guest is Shane Evans. Shane is a children's book illustrator, an author, and painter, and storyteller, and musician. He worked at Rolling Stone magazine, Hallmark Cards, and his work has been featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show, The Today Show, Reading Rainbow, and Late Night with David Letterman. He has illustrated close to 50 titles. The most recent illustrated book, My Friend, written by longtime friend and actor Taye Diggs. Shane has been awarded the Jane Addams Peace Award, the Coretta Scott King Award, and the NAACP IMAGE Award. Shane is also the creator and illustrator of the Shauna book series, which spurred a television show called Shane's Kindergarten Countdown. He is currently working on a musical and art concept that was inspired by the meeting of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King called MM 2000. Well, welcome, Shane.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You have so many offerings. Most recently, a project with Ty Diggs. Can you tell us about your journey to this project?
Well, Tay and I, we've been friends since before he was actually Tay. When he was Scott Diggs back in high school, we started to collaborate, if you might say that, in collaboration of just being friends, really, and evolving that into a family dynamic, really. So from that kind of tender age of sophomores in high school all the way through college, we went to Syracuse together. And then as we kind of started to develop in our professional world, we found it very important to remain in connection as friends and as family. And then we also started to see the importance of developing visuals and sounds and music and etc.
And what about this book that you did with him? How did you get to that point?
The My Friend evolution started. We started with this book called Chocolate Me that he wrote a piece while we were in college, a poem actually called Chocolate Me for a project that I had, thought about putting together in relationship to, what it meant to be a black person. The project was called Blackness, but really more just an evolution or a thought process around what it is to be. I think in retrospect, like what it is to be a human, really, and each person's experience specifically. So he had written this piece called Chocolate Me. And then I had this piece for so long after college when I started into the publishing world. It kind of really just dawned on me one day that it really made sense that it could be a beautiful picture book. So that started us into the publishing world. And we did another book called Mixed Me, which I think had a lot to do with us as parents. We did a book called I Love You More Than, which also, kind of extended the idea of parent relationship and child relationship. And then My Friend seemed to be the natural evolution of all the books combined. And also, just a celebration of our friendship for the, many years that we've had it. So that's how that came.
How do you channel spirituality in your art? And how do you feel, how do you feel in terms of how your art affects the world, or how do you want your art to affect the world?
That's a different question. I appreciate that. I mean, how do I channel on a daily basis? I think that I find myself having to meditate, and I often have to go into a prayerful place to, bring that to the surface, so to speak. And um, there's a lot of hope involved in the process. There's a lot of faith involved in the process. And I've been doing it for so long, since I was a child, and been encouraged to do it, that I suppose that part of it is the practice of the gift, and then how I feel about it overall. I'm humbled by what the impact is, and I'm often learning from other people's experiences, what the impact brings, because in some ways you just have to kind of trust that what you offer is going to do what is needed. And so I think from that perspective it's very humbling.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I like that you meditate and you bring it into your art because, art changes all of us. Just looking at art moves us, and it doesn't even matter what the art is. So, there's a piece of you always in it and a piece of your spirit in it, which I think is amazing. So when it comes to your work, you are a mixed race child. How do you think that influences what you do or the view of your world?
I mean, I've been exploring that throughout, because if I'm a mixed race child, that means I'm a mixed race adult as well. That's the idea. But if I were to really press anybody and say, you know what that idea is, I started to really embrace that being so-called mixed is really everyone's story. If you really get down to the so-called nitty-gritty of it, it's like you likely will have two parental, guides that bring you into the world, and their familial dynamic is, even if there's a vast amount of similarity, there's also going to be a vast amount of difference. So from a cultural perspective, that's kind of how I see, well, we call it race, but I also started to see it as more of a cultural dynamic too. So how it affects us all is going to be unique. And because I've had these two very different cultural perspectives, my Italian side of the family and the so-called black side of the family, both of those familial dynamics like started in America for as far as I could remember anyway. But like there's another thread to that story that I think goes well beyond that. So those two families inspired me to go deeper. So, I've traveled well beyond the boundaries of, race, I think, to find that, whether it literally is going back to Italy or going back to, the continent of Africa, that the storyline is much richer than often we are labeled. So even in like embracing the idea of being mixed, it's taken me well beyond that idea to see deeper into who I am and who others are as well.
Does it kind of make you feel like you're everyman? Because I mean, seriously, like you encompass, two different things coming together like we all do. Like I'm Italian, so I'm Italian American, but that's
Right.
whatever. Not everybody's Italian, not everybody's American, but you're bringing in
Right.
cultural difference, race difference. So does that come through in your art? Does that come through in your work? And what about your kids? Like, how does that affect them or help them?
Right. Do you know where you're from in Italy? Where the
Yeah,
family is
yeah.
from?
My family is from Bari.
Bari. Where is that? Is it in the north?
No, South. My family's from Bari. My husband's family's from Naples.
Naples. Okay.
Where is your family from?
I was I I want to say Sicily, mostly the Sicilian, and then I think actually I just found out recently my grandmother's parents, they have Roman, from Rome kind of connections. But when I was back in the motherland, from that aspect of my life, I found that, like, and I was in Florence for a while, and these small towns outside of Florence, and I found that, it was like I was finding a deep connection to that culture. So I guess if there's an every man concept, there must be an every woman concept too. So um, I think it's like the idea of adaptability came a lot from, being able to connect with my grands, the grandparents, and having them tell me the stories that allowed me the opening to go back into those spaces and feel comfortable. So if comfort is about like being, connected to who you are as a person in the now, then I think that just opens the door to your ancestral connection as well. So any time I am somewhere, I feel yes that I can connect. I mean, I've been to China and felt connected, and I don't seem like I am Chinese, look like I am Chinese, but it seemed like I've connected so well with that culture. I even had to question it while I was there. So I don't know. And then how it affects my family. My daughter is coming from, two different perspectives. She is Japanese and one aspect of who she is. She's African American, that aspect of who she is very real too. So I think it just allows us the aptitude to see other perspectives as readily as we need to, because it changes so often, especially in America. America is such a unique amalgam of like experiences.
When you're in China, do you get those like deja vu moments?
I like that. Yeah, I mean, yes, because like walking on the Great Wall, which I mean, it's been a while, but it's like walking on the Great Wall. I started to break the wall down from the perspective of what it took to build just the little section that I was on, and to see the whole entire wall would have taken, I don't know, for likely months to walk that wall. So literally grand.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like, if you're believe in reincarnation, um, that you've been, yeah, you've had a lifetime there, but you've also had a lifetime in Florence, both of them. I know that I don't have a drop of French blood, and yet I can navigate the streets of Paris like I grew up there because there's a remembering in my
Yeah.
soul,
Mm.
different than, if I go to Prague. I love Prague, but I don't feel that I belong here. I can pack up and move here, even though I like it very much. So, there's that always that piece of, yeah, there's something here. And I really feel you have such a deep connection to China, such a deep connection that, if you go there again, I would really, sit in a Buddhist temple and feel what it feels like there, because it'll come through to you. You're very open, you're a very old soul, and so, the way it comes through to you is in your artwork in a lot of ways, so that you process it through your art. Every artist works in different ways, and we've had artists on the show and musicians on the shows and composers on the show, and everybody kind of does their own thing. But the most wonderful thing about what you do, you take your past and you channel it into your art. Even when it's commissioned art or art that you're doing for something, and you have, I have to illustrate this book, you're still channeling it through, which I think is really wonderful, really wonderful. Like David Hockney, you look at his art, which is kind of simple, and yet you feel it. There's something in it. You feel who he is. Not only do people feel who they are when they look at the things that you did or you do, I feel like they feel your ancestral line, and they feel your past lives in it, which makes it, remarkable. So I don't know if anyone's ever told that to you, but that's kind of what I'm hearing. Your ancestors are completely around you, by the way. I mean, they're not leaving you, and they love that you try to figure them out, okay? Because you bring them forward, you keep them alive.
No, I appreciate that. I guess that's a good perspective. It's like one of these things that, yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I have, but sometimes there are moments when I am in places on the earth, and I can relate to that. It's like, why am I so comfortable? Or, I don't know. I agree. It's definitely one of those things.
It's remarkable when you feel a sense of being there, and you're able to express it in other ways so that the world can see it without verbalizing it. So you started something called Dream Studio. What is that about?
When I was in, I grew up in Buffalo, and I had the opportunity to connect with the artist through my mother. She had introduced me to a gentleman who was doing this. At the time, I thought it was incredible artwork. Done these pencil drawings, huge pencil drawings, and he had a loft in Buffalo, and he was doing kind of like, he's living there, and he was rehabbing the space, and I just was in awe of the old architecture, and just this kind of rough environment. Except it was very like art. We call it artsy, but it's like he just had taken something that wasn't intended likely to live in and created an art and live space. So when I had gotten to Kansas City after college, and I'm always recognizing all the abandoned buildings all over the world, actually. And at some point, I wanted to be, and I think embrace the idea that I am an architect. So when I would see old buildings either falling apart or abandoned, I just know that that's not the original intention of the architect. So after a while, like that idea that I had from when I was a child in Buffalo had held on, throughout, and I recognized that I could take an old space and evolve it. And so I took a building that was likely over 100 years old. And I think it's so ironic because it's about 5 blocks away from where Disney started his operation. And I basically got the ownership of the building and then took on the responsibility, because I think it's that when you kind of take on a home or a building or whatever and open up this space to be able to create. And then I recognized too that the space was so grand that I felt like having others in this space as an artist was a good way to motivate not only myself but the community around me as well. So that's what it that's what it was for a long time, and it still remains that idea. Um, but the primary use of the space was to create, have a space to be able to paint and be able to meditate and play music and everything I needed as well.
So, do other people come in there who paint or play music?
Yeah, when it was at its kind of like prime, in terms of like time and what everyone was doing in the community, yes, that was the case. And now I find myself, probably a couple 3 or 4 years ago, started to get on the road a lot more and then focus a lot more on what I was doing with books. So it's kind of waiting for that. I think it's waiting for that rearrival at some point. And with everything happening in the world, everything's kind of slowed down.
It'll come back
Yeah,
and you'll
I
be ready
agree.
for it. So, you've been working on a project for a while about the moment in time when Malcolm X met Martin Luther King. What is that about? What is that moment?
I've been exploring it in this very unique way. The MM 2000 idea. At first, I had called it MX 1010 or something of that nature, because of the Roman numeral M and X together, I think would equal 1010. But then I just, made a decision. I was like MM, and then I did the research, and then there it was. It was like MM is happens to be 2000 in Roman numeral. And so the Malcolm and the Martin, I was always fascinated by that black and white photograph of them shaking hands. And, you know, when you learn the storyline around their politic, the idea had always been shared, opposed to us, that they were, very different in the way they had their politics set up or their mindset around how they were going to get to where they needed to be or help their community to be where they needed to be. And it helped everyone. Like Martin was a civil rights, fighter. And I think Martin was the civil rights focus, and Malcolm, that same idea was prevalent in his work. Um, so then when the visual of them shaking hands, hit me, I'm like, well, if everyone says they're in opposition, then at some point they must have had an agreement in that second or however long it took to get that photograph. So maybe about 4 years ago, I started into, approaching it. I had this incredible body of music that I had written over the years that had a very connected storyline. If you listen to the music in succession, and then I started to explore these angel portraits. I was doing these portraits of black and white photos with these painted wings, and I see them now as auras. And it started with those two, those them as portraits, and then it expanded, and I probably have done maybe 450 of these portraits over the years. And I wrote this piece. I took 365 days to just write what I have called an imaginary diary of sorts. And it seems to be, when I read back into it, like the voices of all these different characters. So inspired by the musical Hamilton, and Taye was in this musical called Hedwig in the Angry Inch. That's where I kind of said, let me move forward. Let me fight forward to create this idea called the musical. So I've just been like on a campaign of sharing it with people, getting feedback from people, raising awareness, and I acknowledge that it came from just that photograph. So that's essentially what it is. Yeah.
Where can I go to see the portraits of the angels?
Go to my Instagram. There's some there. If you go to the mm2000.me website, we kind of beginning of a site that shows some of the portraits. I haven't released all 400. I think. I mean, I guess the beautiful thing is like the work from children's books comes in, and I have to kind of take pauses and breaks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still cataloging all the work, and so pulling all that together has been the next part of the work.
Do you feel that you channel a lot of this? Like it's just coming through you to be written? Like you said, there's so many pieces to it and so many voices. Do you feel that it comes together in a way that's almost channeled through you?
I almost would defer to you on this one, because I have this sense that you're good at this and an understanding of it. It takes me a while after. It's true. I
No,
mean, it takes me a while after I create something. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, no, I think you're channeling it. I think there's so
Like,
much
where
about
did it come
you.
from?
And I think that, you kind of let it move through you. You don't judge it. I don't feel like you judge. I feel like it comes through you and you think, oh, aha. Like you said, there's a lot of different voices, but they're coming through you in one way so that it goes down on paper as one voice. So that's kind of what I'm hearing around you. And you do it in a way that is perfect for the universe, and it's perfect for people to hear and relate to, because you're relatable, and yeah, that's what you're doing, and you have to recognize that you're changing people's perspective just by being who you are. Like, you don't need to stand on a soapbox.
Hmm.
You just need to keep creating what you create. And the angels, I mean, from what you and how that happened, it feels like they just want to be present in your life. You carry a lot of Buddhist energy, okay? But I feel the angels around you. I feel the other beings around you. And if they just come out in your work, the more color you use, like not just the black and white, is also good for you because you like your world colorful. Your world is colorful. You are colorful. And so that also is a way to, you talk about bringing up awareness. You're bringing up awareness just by putting out your artwork, or getting involved in these projects you're in. You're not quite at the point of releasing, that moment in time between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, but because I feel like it's something that your soul needs to understand, like it hasn't gelled yet. Once it gels, it'll come out and it'll be great. But you're channeling it all, every bit of it. So I'm thank you for all of us who get to look at your artwork, and appreciate it and feel it, because art is to be felt. It comes into all of our senses, but we feel it in our souls. So it's pretty wonderful. So what do you think? What are some of the things we can do, to come together and heal the world?
Goodness, that's a good one. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is like this, and I have to use language very thoughtfully, is kind of to be yourself. And if you genuinely look at each word in that 3-word sentence, be yourself, each word's dynamic, impact is specific. So the idea of being, to be, and then I like to look at it from different like linguistic perspectives too. Like if you speak Italian, like you're gonna translate that into like your mind, and to be like yours and always just about self. It's not just you as individual. It like there's a thread of who you are to be who you are today. So, and then the self, I feel like is a container. So uh, there's a long list of also being in order to have self, in order to arrive at self. So I see a lot of times that there are a lot of humans that are on earth, and I say this in like this humbling way again, it's like that they're not being themselves, and there's a struggle in that space. So when that struggle happens, then there's a lash out, and that lash out, like other people feel that. So like, how do we all come together? I think there's an encouragement towards like others who recognize self, to encourage others to come out of that space. And it happens in an instance, like not, it's not a, yes, a lifetime is a day in so many ways. So if those awakenings can happen in moments, then we kind of are all better as a result. So as I don't know, as we move through the earth, however that happens, if we're walking, if you're doing Zoom calls now, if you're speaking to people on phones, if you're like praying on, praying for, praying towards, praying around, I think all those energetics help lead us to this, back to the so-called self dynamic. So I don't know. That's a complex question. What's your thought on it? I'd love to
Well,
hear.
well, in line with what you said, first of all, I do believe that words hold energy. Okay. And so when you started
Yep.
talking about, be yourself, those words, hold energy, and they lift us up and they bring up our vibration. But part of us being ourselves is speaking our truth, whatever our truth may be, because that's a part of us. Okay. And the more we speak our truth without judging ourselves and judging other people, okay, breaking down the barriers, that's how the world will be healed. I mean, we came here to connect with each other, to love each other, and to heal each other. Instead of looking for all these differences between each other, that who cares? We're all one. It doesn't matter, what nationality, what religion, what creed, what race. None of that matters in the scheme of things, because we are all one from one creator. And once I feel like we recognize that, then we can start healing not only
Mm,
ourselves but each other. And I think that this pandemic has really been instrumental in that way, because we have one enemy now,
mm,
and it's COVID. Right? I mean, COVID-19 is our enemy. So globally, that's our
mm,
enemy.
mm,
And that's what we're looking at, and that's what we need to keep in mind, that we're all together fighting this common enemy because we are one. And once I really feel like, once people get that, and I really would prayed, through this pandemic, that people would get that, it'll be okay. And then we can heal
mm.
each other. But right now it's one step at a time. And so, as each person stands in their truth and who they are, without that fear, which many people carry, it's like a domino effect, and it will affect everybody. So,
I see where you're. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I recognize it's like when you said the word enemy. That's a scary. It's a scary idea. The
mm-hmm,
enemy
mm-hmm,
as an idea, like it's when someone's like your enemy. It's most people are going into a defensive or combative mode
mm-hmm,
unless you kind of have like embraced the idea of loving your enemy. So then if and I've had some time with the idea of the COVID idea because if you talk about the impact of words, CO is a, a prefix usually that can be added to words, and it usually means something related to togetherness,
mm-hmm,
community, or collective. And then vid, I had done some research, and it sounds like it too. It's like psych based. So if you and it's from a Greek, just the little research that I did, it's from a Greek uh, etymology. So if we're co-seeing together at this moment, but like we someone has branded that idea as being like an enemy. Like yes, we don't want that in our midst. But now, how do we collectively, come to a and seeing is such a varied, experience. Like not everyone sees the same. I awe in that, doing visual work. And not everyone sees the colors that I see. Not everyone sees the lines as clear. And that's not a comparison. It's like this is what I've been gifted. So yeah, I
mm-hmm.
appreciate that perspective on it.
So, do you think we can love COVID? I mean, if we can love our enemy, can we love COVID?
Yes, but the source of love is not always about like hearts
Mm-hmm,
and romance. So if we look at love in its like entirety and its complexity, then the idea would be yes, because and I'm even that because like be like the cause of love and its effect. It's very optimally um how do I say this? It would be a truth to say that a collective body of love energy could heal someone from anything. We have seen it on this planet. It's not like
mm-hmm,
that's a new concept. So any plagues that have plagued us prior to this plague, something before technology existed. And so I would say that that would be love of all things. And so as a result, the answer again is yes. It's like, why wouldn't we be able to, love that energy out of someone with simply, I say simply, but like thought is a very complex energy. So once you go into that thought, it starts to work. It's like on a cellular level. Like,
mm-hmm.
so yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have a hard time getting around that. But we can love
Mm,
what came out of COVID, leaving out the horrific part of it and all of that, and looking
mm,
at how it brought people together, whether in their families or their communities or countries or globally. There's
mm,
there's always a yin and a yang, and so the positive aspects of that, of what has been going on with this pandemic, have been okay. They've been good. It's the ability
mm,
to get out of the painful part of it, but we grow from pain. We evolve from pain. It's how you look at things. We're complicated beings, we're complicated energies, but we all carry the spark of divinity within us. And so if we recognize that
yeah.
spark, hopefully it's a road to understanding. It's a road to be awakened. So um, and life can be good even with the
Yeah.
pain.
True.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I so appreciate it. And to all my listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please like, share, and comment, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much, Shane, for being on today. I will definitely go onto your Instagram page. I look forward to seeing the paintings of the angels because they are all around us, and I love that. So thank you so much for doing what you do for the world. God bless.
Same to you. Thank you so much.